Exercise snacks. This is actually kind of a neat concept about how some different ways to 5.3. You know what yours are? So I'm just using a Libre 2 device. I'm just trying to, I'm going to probably do um, I'm doing some work on how to get my blood sugar better control, get some more exercises. Right now, Brad and Haley, is that I still have that sore hip. It's so I'm doing limited amount of activity. I'm doing some mostly upper body aerobic activity for a while yet. So I'm really missing that. So I really want to maybe try a couple exercise snacks today and see what I can do. Tell us more.
Yeah, so to start us off, we're going to go into a little bit of a pop quiz, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more of the information to help kind of rationalize the answers to these questions. So the first question we have for you is a true or false. It says a workout can't be high intensity unless you go to the gym.
And the answer is
And drum
no.
roll,
Just
the answer is
no. False.
exactly. So the answer is false, which we'll get into a little bit later, but you can have a very productive workout without always having to go to the gym. However, the gym is really handy to kind of give you some options about how to make an intense workout, but you can always do it at home as well. Now, the second true or false question we have for you on the next slide is a short, high intensity chunks of exercise during the day can improve your health.
Absolutely. And it's something that we need to do more of, and I'm trying to do more of them.
Perfect. Yeah, Dr. Curnew got it right. It is true, which we'll talk a little bit more about throughout this webinar when we discuss exercise snacks.
All right, now first thing we're going to talk about is something called HIIT. It's not the hitting, it's called a high intensity interval training. We also use it synonymously with exercise snacks, but we'll talk a little bit about that later. But how to define it simply is episodes of vigorous exercise with a high heart rate and with periods of recovery. So this could be many things. It could be traditionally when somebody hears of this, you might think of running, sprinting. Those are things that athletes do, but the regular Joe can also do things that are stationary, that are much easier as well, that would be under HIIT exercise. Now, it has so many benefits, but before we get into benefits, it's very convenient. It doesn't take much time. It does come with a little bit of injury risk if it's too vigorous, things like sprinting, if it's done too much. But aside from that, for most people, some of the easier versions is quite relatively safe to do, and the ones we're going to share tonight are very safe to do. Now, for the benefits, they've looked at HIIT for body composition. It's been quite wonderful in helping body composition. What is body composition? That is when you're losing weight, you keep more of the muscle and you lose more of the fat while doing HIIT. And you add things like time restricted eating to that, you get better effects as well. We had a webinar on that. You can check on the channel. Also, metabolism. You burn the calories. It helps with blood sugar regulation when you do it around meals, before or after. We're going to talk about that. Obviously, better cardiovascular health. There's something called VO2 max, the peak oxygen consumption that you can use during exercise, heavily associated with better health and longevity. That's another one that you get benefits from with HIIT exercises. Mental health and cognitive health, endorphins released. So it's also a good feel exercise. I can relate to this. I do a lot of slow exercise and I don't really feel good afterwards. If I'm sad, I go on a jog. I still feel sad afterwards sometimes, but when I do an interval training, afterwards, it's amazing. So the other benefit is that one. And all-cause mortality. Again, so any exercise would be associated with less all-cause mortality, but even HIIT. So there's the benefits. We're going to get into some details after. How often should you do it? I just touched on this briefly about not doing it too often because of injury concerns. But take a look at this. So it's not an everyday workout. Okay, that's important. So what I try to do with myself, I have different goals. I'm trying to get faster and better at running. I do it once a week, once bi-weekly, but that's very intense. But for most people, you do it, so some easy HIIT exercises. It can be a daily thing, and we'll show some of those as well. a good recommendation is 3 to 5 times a day, a few times a week. If you can do it every day, even better. And we're going to show you can do it at work. It's quite an easy thing to do. You can do it very easily, you can do it very difficult, and you can go to athlete mode as well. It's quite flexible.
So going back to the true or false question that we had at the beginning, when we said that we don't actually need the gym to have a super intense workout, we can actually do HIIT at home. So one study had participants complete an 8-week home-based video-directed whole body HIIT plan. So what that meant was participants were given videos to follow for HIIT exercises that worked their entire body. So it wasn't just working their upper body one day, working lower body the other day. It was always a full body exercise. So one group was given this and the other group was given no exercise. And after these 8 weeks, what they found was that that whole body HIIT workout group found an increase in a few factors, one of which was the VO2 peak, which they saw a 5% increase. And what that means is that it's your peak oxygen consumption, and basically that's just a measure of how much oxygen a person can consume during intense exercise. So it actually is a measure of aerobic fitness. So if we increase our VO2 peak, it actually means we're becoming a lot more aerobically fit, which also leads into our second point, where they actually found an increase in aerobic capacity. So your ability to participate in aerobic fitness a little bit more. And then they also found their leg lean mass was a lot better by 3%, and muscle strength grew by varying range of 6 to 13%, and muscle endurance, so that will help your muscles not get tired as quickly, was found an increase in about 28%. So what this kind of means is that HIIT at home can actually improve your cardiorespiratory and muscle fitness, and it can also increase your actual tolerance for exercise and reduce the likelihood of you getting tired when you're exercising. So to kind of drive this point home, we also wanted to include some examples of some 30-minute HIIT workouts you could do at home. So we have a dumbbell workout if you want to kind of increase the intensity a little bit more, and you do have those dumbbells accessible to you. Alternatively, if you don't have dumbbells, you can always use a filled water bottle or cans of food. Those work just as well. Or we have just a body weight exercise. So that's no kind of additional weights. It's just using your body as well as you can. So this would be a good thing to screenshot if you wanted to kind of find out ways you can incorporate HIIT workouts into your at-home routine. Another really great way to incorporate HIIT workouts into your at-home routine would be YouTube channels and videos. So on the next slide here, we have 2 different kind of options or examples you can go to. When it was during the pandemic, I actually found this YouTuber. Her name is MK Fit. She's from Canada, which is super cool, but she actually posts dance videos, and she calls it it's like a dance HIIT routine. So what it is that you're basically doing dance moves, but you're doing it with that HIIT mindset. So it's a really good way to kind of almost have a little dance party in your house, but also get an exercise in. But if you aren't really into dancing all that much, there's also a bunch of other at-home videos, HIIT videos, one of which is Fitness Blender, which is a really great resource that you can use. And they have a bunch of playlists and different videos on how to incorporate HIIT into your at-home workout routine. And then if you go to the next slide, we've discussed a lot about HIIT, but there are some positive impacts it can have after different diagnoses or different incidents that happen. So for example, after stroke, HIIT has been investigated as something that can help people who are recovering from a stroke. So this study had 82 post-stroke participants, and they're randomly assigned to either complete basically a moderate intensity continuous training versus high intensity interval training. So to kind of paint that picture in a more visual sense, you can look at the top graph here. So HIIT is kind of going up and down in intensity, whereas moderate intensity continuous training is kind of staying at that level throughout that whole 12-week period, or throughout that time, sorry, but it's a little bit longer of an exercise. And basically what they found is that there were no key differences between the groups in things like blood pressure, walking distance or speed, or arterial stiffness. But what they did find was HIIT was actually better at improving cardiovascular fitness after stroke. So if you look to this graph here, this is kind of a visual of it. So the red line, which is the line at the top here, that's your HIIT workout routine, and your bottom green dots are your moderate intensity continuous training group. And what they found was that HIIT increased peak oxygen uptake. And basically what that means is that it actually will reduce your risk in cardiovascular disease, or it will help to reduce your risk for cardiovascular disease. So again, even if you aren't like recovering from a stroke, these are still quite evidence that could be transferable to people, healthy people who can and want to incorporate HIIT into their routine and kind of methodology of how it could help you. Now, we also kind of want to discuss a little bit more about your brain, because your brain is a really important part that we want to maintain its capacity as long as possible, because it's a really important function throughout your entire life. So when we're talking about the brain, one important area we have is the hippocampus. So as you can see, the hippocampus is kind of these blue, the yellow here at the bottom. And its functions are things like long-term and short-term memory, learning, and spatial awareness. So what this study found was that HIIT may be more effective at improving hippocampus function than other exercises. So this was a larger study, so it had about 151 healthy adults, and they completed a 6-month exercise program. And basically, they completed one of 3 30-minute exercise routines. So they either did balance and stretching, brisk walking on a treadmill, or 4 HIIT cycles on a treadmill. So what they found was that out of these 3 groups, HIIT was the only group that actually showed positive changes in hippocampus function, and they retained this improvement for up to 5 years later. So what this could mean, if you are, let's say, wanting to maintain your ability to like remember things, or you want to make sure you're able to keep learning into later in life, HIIT might be a way that to kind of help improve that just a little bit more than other practices you might already be doing. So as we're talking all about exercising, we thought it might be a good idea to kind of get moving throughout this webinar as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of an exercise snack right now. So I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute, and we're going to do jumping jacks for 1 minute. So we have the beginner exercises on the side here. So if you can't do the full jump for a minute, you can always just extend your arm and leg out and do the opposite at the same time. That's in one option, or you can do a complete jumping jack, which is just the normal function that you can see in the video. So I'm going to start the timer now, and we're going to do it together, okay? 3, 2, 1, go. So we're going to do this for 1 minute, and while we're doing it, make sure you keep breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, and I'll kind of keep on you by giving you kind of time cues to let you know how much time we have left. Okay, we are halfway there, just 30 more seconds. Remember to keep breathing. Oh, my dog's jumping on me. 15 more seconds. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome job, everyone. So let's move on to talking a little bit more about exercise snacks.
That was an exercise snack we just did right there. So what is it? Exercise snacks are just an alternative, user-friendly term for HIIT. It's a type of HIIT. And what you can think of it is, again, individual bouts of vigorous exercise, 30 seconds to a minute to 3 minutes. You get into the 3-4 minutes, you get into HIIT, where it's a workout program, but very small bouts, around a minute, with a relatively higher heart rate above 75%. Now, if you look at some of the research studies, they look at 90% heart rate, so very maximal. But a good example of it, for example, is stair climbing, squats, what Haley just did. And we have an example at the bottom, doing it multiple times a day, 3 to 5 times a day, a few times a week. It's like measuring your blood pressure. That's how you can think of it. But you can do it more often. In fact, if you do it daily and put it in your routine, that's probably the most ideal thing to do. So we're going to talk a little bit more about exercise snack and its effects. Now, what are its effects on blood glucose? Now, you probably have heard that walking after a meal helps with glucose control. That's absolutely true. And there's also this study, very interesting, that compared different walking protocols on glucose metabolism, on glucose clearance. And specifically, they look at 30 minutes walking before a meal. Now, they had 3 different groups. One was the regular walking group, regular pace, for 30 minutes before a meal. So that's the CONT group in the middle. And you can see on the diagram at the top, it's the dash line. That's just for your reference. We're not going to talk about the details. And they compared that with the ES exercise snack group. Their group was 6 sets of 1 minute fast walking intervals, but very fast. So 90% heart rate. That's almost a very fast walk. So imagine the Olympic walkers. That's how fast you have to walk. Now, again, depending on the person, heart rate will be different, but very vigorous for 1 minute, 6 sets. Then you had the CES group, the composite exercise snack. It was actually quite creative. They combined this exercise snack protocol, the fast walking protocol, with a resistance band. So you get an extra bit of strength training in there as well. What they found was that the continuous exercise of walking before the meal did not, which is quite interesting to me, did not decrease blood glucose after a meal, but the exercise snack did. And the composite exercise snack also did. So they were quite similar. But beyond that, what was interesting to me was that the following day, the mean blood glucose was still less than the control walking group, which is more power to the exercise snack protocol. So it's a wonderful idea to incorporate throughout the day. And there's something called habit stacking that I'm going to mention in a bit, where combining it to things that you already do is a wonderful way to keep doing this long term, right? Because anybody can try this once, but it's more of a habit, a healthy habit that you have to start. Now, personally, I have not been doing this. I actually noticed that some of them, like calf raises, I do it spontaneously, but it's not something that I consciously do. We consciously do it, it's slightly better because you do it consistently over time. Now, the other idea is,
I get this right. If I go for a walk 30 minutes before I'm eating, I'm not lowering my blood sugar.
Not as much in this group. So that's what they found, which is again quite surprising to me. I'm not sure why this is. That they
After a meal. I thought
this was before me, but after a meal it would. After a meal it would. For this particular study we're looking at before. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But again, something I put here, so how to incorporate it. I just mentioned habit stacking. This is a sample schedule. So think about the times you eat in a day. Different people have different schedules. Some people snack throughout the day, like Dr. Curnew. Some people have designated meal times. But whatever it is, you can think of linking some of these favorite HIIT exercises and do it before the meals. 30 minutes before it, 30 minutes after. Honestly, that matters less. What matters is doing it. Again, 1 minute bouts, 3 to 5 times a day. And you can also link it to when you take breaks. Again, it depends on the person, but the most important thing is doing it, is what I would say. I know, Dr. Curnew, you walk many times throughout the day. So that's a very good example of exercise snacks. Maybe companies should start doing this, where employees are enticed to get up and walk after an hour or so. I'm sure some creative companies have done this. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they have. So there's lots of things you can do. There you go, exercise snacks at work. There you go.
Yeah, great segue. So the next kind of thing we wanted to talk about is we understand that work is super busy, especially with so many people migrating from that hybrid model back to in-person a lot more than prior. So we understand that it might be a little bit harder to incorporate exercise into your routine. So we do want to, though, encourage you to still exercise, and exercise snacks are a really great way to do that if you do feel like you're kind of really busy at work. So one study found they looked at 14 participants, and these participants completed 2 supervised exercise trials. One's doing HIIT, and then one's doing exercise snacks. So in the top left here, you can kind of see that they broke up into doing exercise snacks and then HIIT, and then they had a period where then they alternated and they did the exercise they didn't do. And then basically they then had 1 week of the participants being able to choose which form they wanted to continue in the workplace. So what they found was when completing exercise snacks, participants actually reported being in a better mood and feeling a lot less exerted than when they were completing those HIIT exercises. And then they also found that both HIIT and snacks provided high post-exercise enjoyment and self-efficiency, and that 71% of participants actually preferred exercise snacks over HIIT. So these kind of graphs up here depict kind of what I was saying in those points, showing that although both doing both HIIT and snacks were really helpful in making people want to exercise and being a lot more self-efficient, people did have a tendency to prefer those exercise snacks because they felt in a better mood, they felt less exerted. So that's also really important when you are working. You want to make sure you are kind of doing the most you can at your job, but you also want to make sure you're living that healthy life too. So exercise snacks, as you can see from this study, might be a good way to incorporate that exercise into your work routine without overstimulating yourself. Like those longer kind of HIIT exercises. That could be an alternative if you are kind of struggling to incorporate exercise into your week. And then when we kind of talk about exercise snacks, it kind of sounds too good to believe. Like, whoa, I can only do like a minute of jumping jacks or a minute of stair climbs, and then I do that like 4 times a day and I'm good. So it actually can be super beneficial because often we're living a pretty sedentary lifestyle in today's society. So when we're living a sedentary lifestyle, that impacts so many of our bodily systems, including our digestion. It does not help with circulation, so it makes it a lot poorer. It decreases our bone mass, which makes our bones a little bit more brittle. And then we also have a lot poorer of mental health when we aren't moving as much. So really, when we are kind of having those prolonged sitting periods, it can hinder your body's multiple body systems. But again, going back to that digestion issue, it can also hinder your ability to process nutrients after a meal. So what exercise snacks can do is they can actually counteract these effects of a sedentary lifestyle because you're stimulating your muscles. Basically that can help improve how your body processes nutrients. So by helping your body, it can do so by helping your body kind of use those dietary amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. They're the ones that make our muscles stronger. And it helps them use those more effectively. And it helps support muscle maintenance and repair. So you're going to be able to maintain that muscle strength a lot more than whether if you weren't incorporating exercise snacks versus when you were. So basically the key takeaway of this is that exercise snacks throughout the day can really help reduce the amount you sit and improve your body's ability to break down and use micronutrients, which will really help your body do things like build proteins, but also regulate your blood sugar and kind of those fats after eating. So when we talk all about exercise snacks, we want to make sure we take away with some ways that you can actually apply these into your lifestyle. So a few more intense exercise snacks could be things like sprints. So if you have the ability to maybe sprint down your hallway at work or go outside and just do sprints down the block, that's a really good way. Stair climbs, you can do that in any building that has stairs. So your apartment building, your workplace, your house, anything outside if you want to get a little bit more fresh air. You also can do jumping jacks, which is what we did before. We also have things like mountain climbers, which you can do even beside your desk or when you get home from work, things like that. Burpees are one of my favorite exercises. I know that's a controversial opinion, but I do love them. Or we have jump squats if you kind of want that alternative of kind of pushing yourself up rather than getting down and going up.
Just as in brackets, Haley, these are some of my warm-ups before for soccer. So interesting. Dynamic exercises seem to be similar to HIIT. Although HIIT might be, if you want to actually use it as an exercise regimen, a little bit more difficult. But thanks for that.
Yeah. And then we also have push-ups, which is a really great exercise. I know Dr. Curnew loves his push-ups, but there are different ways to do push-ups if you're maybe not at that standard position. You can do knee push-ups, you can do wall push-ups, or you can do an incline push-up. That might make it a little bit easier on your body if you are still building up that strength to do that normal push-up. And then we also have other exercises. So things like high knees is a really good one. Side steps and cross punches, especially cross punches are good if maybe your legs are a bit sore or if you have trouble with your knees. That's a really good way to kind of get your blood moving and more working your upper body as well. Now, Brad, do you want to take this part away?
Sure. So when we talk about all these things, we also wanted to mention fall prevention. So if you look at this diagram on the bottom right, falls are associated with many bad things, and we're just gonna have this quick 45-second clip of Dr. Attia telling us about its effect. The stats are quite alarming and remarkable. So just take a listen.
In the United States, over 14 million or 25% of people over the age of 65 will fall each year. Now, to be clear, that's people who report it. So we believe that number is significantly higher. This risk goes up quite non-linearly. So by the time we're talking about octogenarians and nonagenarians, the annual incidence of falling is at least 50%. And you'll recall that I said that the risk of death from that fall, depending on the series you look at, will be somewhere between 15 and 30% of those falls, if they result in a broken hip, will result in fatality within the 12 months that ensue.
Now, some of these data here, they're from Ottawa, and you can see that one of the causes of going to nursing home is actually falls. So a lot of people who fall, that is a transition to long-term care or retirement homes or nursing homes. So that's kind of important to consider. The other thing is, how do you actually prevent it? We have some tips here. The tips can be, this is not an exhaustive list. There's many reasons for falls, but these are some of the common ones. One is decluttering your environment. This is huge. And somebody who has worked in a retirement home last year for 5 months, I realized, I saw this firsthand. In fact, the number one reason for us calling the ambulance was falls. Now, most of the time, people were not injured, but it was extremely common. And the most common reason, it was not a sole cause, it was actually multifactorial, but decluttering spaces was one of the biggest ones. And wrong shoes, wrong sandals was another one. Eyesight is another one. Not being complacent on that and making sure that's checked if it can be helped. Medications, some medications, having your blood pressure too low. These are all things to discuss with your doctor. Very important. Being in a well-lit environment, having guardrails if you can. Even having some backups. You can, like anybody can fall, so just having backups in around the house. If you ever do fall, you can catch yourself. Now, part of that is some of the balance training we're going to talk about, but having, being close to a chair, being close to a bed, just to grab onto something. That's also very important. In the shower, a lot of people fall in the shower. That's also important. Having non-slip rubber mats and just doing things mindfully is probably my biggest tip. Not doing things, not rushing to go places. It's kind of like driving too quickly. So don't walk too quickly. Don't get up too fast. Those are very important, because even if you do all these things, you can still fall if you're not careful. And that's when people are just not paying attention. And they just kind of feel okay, and the fall happens. Again, that's not everybody, but it's definitely some people. Now, it's getting activity is important. Balance training, Dr. Curnew, I'm sure you have favorites out of these examples. My favorite is probably the step down, so-called eccentric exercises. That is when the muscle is lengthening. Eccentric, concentric is when you contract. The reason step downs are my favorite is because a lot of times when people fall, it's the inability to catch yourself with your feet. And you can exercise that with the step downs, for example. Now that's what we have here is a side step. You can also do it going down the stairs, hold on to the stairs and go and do that. Do it with weights. So you can see on the left, she's doing a step up. You go up and you go down with weights. So you get both worlds. You get a step up and you get a step down, right? And then we have the leg strengthening. That can be a little bit difficult for most people. This one at the top left right here, that gentleman doing a single leg standing exercise. Now I do that for strengthening myself with weights, but it strengthens the legs. You can also see this one on the right. Let's say putting your socks on. That's something you can do. Actually try to do that. I do this for warm-up as well, but again, you can do it. It's very easy to do these things. Just making a habit of yourself whenever you're putting clothing on, practicing it, right? Just mindfully practicing it. And even when you're at risk of a fall, just mindfully moving. That's really important. Sit to stand is another one. So you can see some of them is leg strengthening, but it's also that neuromuscular connection. Having the habit of using those muscles that stop you, that you can put the brakes on. Dr. Kern, do you have any favorites of these things that you try? Do you recommend that you've seen people trying?
Well, one of the things that I was doing quite a bit of before is that when I put my socks on in the morning, I lift up one foot and try to put my socks on while standing. And I find as I have a wet foot with tight socks, it's more challenging after I come out of the shower. But I go through phases about this. But I notice that my ability to keep balance is dramatically different. And left or right foot it or whatever, you find one leg's better than the other. So I think this is something that's the key issue. What I will tell people to do is when you get up slowly, sit at the side of the bed for a little bit, especially at nighttime. You come from a warm bed. Most people turn their heat down at nighttime, and then just sit there for a second, and then get up, and make sure there's a light on there. And I think it's important. And you got to know your blood pressure. Is that it's, we're trying to keep your blood pressure down, but if we keep it too low, we do more harm than good, and we're always balancing that effect. So lower the blood pressure, the longer you live, the lower your blood pressure, the more you fall. And it's very clear in Ontario, when someone starts you on a blood pressure medication, you're more likely to break a hip in the first 6 months. I'll repeat that. Controlling blood pressure, getting a blood pressure pill, will increase your risk of a hip fracture in the first 6 months. It doesn't mean we can't lower your blood pressure. It just means we have to decide how dizzy you are. And we have this question called postural dizziness. When you get up, you get dizzy. That hot tub effect. And I have no idea why most people, when you hear the age of 65, you see numbers between 25 to 50% of people over the age of 80 years of age will fall. And if you don't know your blood pressure, you can't really manage it well. So I love these exercises, do different ones. There's two types of falls. There's the young people's fall. You fall and break your wrist because you catch yourself. Then the old farts fall like myself, we can't catch ourselves and we break our hip. And you heard mortality data from anywhere between 10 and 50% of people who fall and break their hip will pass away in the next year. 50% of people who break their hip will never gain full mobility again. So that's a lot. So this fall prevention is really, really important. And building muscle is important and balance is important. So these are actually very key factors in all this. I think you said it well. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And just to give a shout out, I know we're in December now, but November is Fall Prevention Month. And there's a website if you want to look it up. It's called Falls Prevention Month. And they have a lot of really good resources regarding how to prevent falls that kind of go a little bit more into depth. We also have a past webinar about fall prevention that you can also check out if you are interested in learning a little bit more about this information. Yeah,
Thanks
that's
for
the
sharing this,
website.
Haley. Yeah, I'm gonna take a look.
It's super helpful. There's even some like games and stuff like if you want to have a little bit of fun while doing it in crosswords and stuff, it's a really good resource.
Just practice just standing on one foot. You're at the kitchen table, you're cooking dinner, stand on one foot.
And one more in back, as I was going to mention this, I forgot. I put on the top left, if you do any of these things, I've noticed that some people, when I mention these things to them, there's this fear of falling or not doing it correctly. So just do it with a chair. Have a chair around. You have that psychological and tangible support in case you do feel lightheaded, in case you want to sit down, etc. You don't have to do it like these figures right here. These are just examples. Alrighty.
All right, and then we just have a few more examples of kind of beginner exercise snacks. And people and those with osteoarthritis. So we do have a video about about walking exercises, but stationary marching is a really good way. That's not going to overstress your joints, but it's a good way to kind of get moving in that sense. Side steps again are a really good way, and then those cross punches as well. And then on the next slide, we kind of have the last little bit, we have glute bridges, which is a good way that will help work your leg muscles. Fast arm circles is a good way to kind of work that upper body. And trust me, if you do it for long enough, you will feel it and it will make you sweat.
You can do it with bottles and make it a strength training exercise as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the last one we do have is a roll up, and this one's more for your core muscles, but those are really important to help maintain your balance too. And then the last thing we're going to do today is we're going to do our last little exercise snack. So we're going to do some squats for about 30 seconds. And then you're going to try and see how many squats you can do in that length of time. So there's the beginner one, and then there's kind of jump squats like we've shown you before. I live in an apartment building, so I'm just going to do the beginner one because I don't want my downstairs neighbors to get mad at me. But I encourage you to try and challenge yourself, maybe even do half and half if you want. But I'm going to start the timer, and again, I'll use the cues to let you know how far we have longer. So 3, 2, 1, go. And if you want, you could also put a chair behind your bum if you don't know really when you should be stopping. That's another great way to kind of monitor how you're doing a squat. Okay, we have about 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Perfect. And then if you want a few more kind of exercise videos to incorporate, we do have them on our YouTube channel, as well as different webinars like the one I said before about falls prevention, which is super good. And then we do have one about arm strength exercises, so that's a good way to kind of work your upper body. But that concludes our webinar for today. Dr. Curnew, do you have any last minute thoughts you wanted to share?
Just do it. Now, when you said to high intensity or HIIT exercises, I think is really undervalued. So A lot of people tell me they go for a walk, and that's wonderful. Walking's good, but I think that's just the beginnings of things. So if that's all you can do, that's terrific. And I think is that if you're really serious about losing weight, the two things that we talked about is high intensity interval training. Now there's different amounts. Is it 40 seconds at maximum activity? Is it 3 minutes of maximum activity, followed by 20 seconds of rest or 30 seconds of rest, or whatever? Is that you have to really feel it. You have to really push yourself. And most of the time is that you do to your maximum capacity and you stop and rest for a short period of time. You're not going to be feeling great, and you do these repetitive exercises. I remember when I was just in Aruba, went to this HIIT training with all these wonderful young women, and they kept looking at me like I was going to die soon because they were actually doing much more than I was doing, and I really enjoyed that. So that was good. So that was a really good workout for myself, and I encourage you to that. I think balance training is such a key factor. We lose our balance, and you heard the numbers of falling between 25% of people to up to 50% of people age of 65, and that goes up as you get older. And if you have good strength, you catch yourself. If you have bad strength, you break your hip. And so I think these are important things. So I think, then, intensity, VO2 max is important. As Dr. Attia and others will say, that the difference of mortality is a difference of 5 between the lowest horsepower VO2 max and the highest. We use METs in our clinic, is that you need about 5 to 6 METs of activity to function well. If you can do over 12 METs of activity, you're doing good. If you do 19, you're even better. Lance Armstrong does 25, but he cheats. And so I think, getting more fit, and there's actually observational data for every 1 MET increase in activity, mortality falls between, let's say, around 10% or so. So if you go from 4 METs of activity to 6 METs of activity, that's actually a potential reduction in mortality, 20% or so. Observational data, but really important. Falling, we're all going to fall. So get up slowly. Make sure there's good lights. Make sure there's no cluttering. And if you feel dizzy, sit down. And if you have trouble, get a walker and start working on these. So I think it's important. I think it's time for push-ups. What do you guys think?
Yep, this time Hale's going to join us too. Alrighty, go ahead.
I'm really looking forward to getting stronger at this point in time. But right now I have this hip problem, so a little bit injured, but you know what? We'll get there. Alrighty, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, 24 it is today.
Ah, very consistent, always 24,
Yeah.
25.
I'm trying to get stronger, but I've just plateaued, but I'll keep going. Yeah.
I was in the shower today. I thought of the push-ups, and I thought for muscle strengthening, growing muscles, the repetitions has to be 8 to 12, 8 to 15. So I like the fact that you add some weights to really stop at 12 and actually get stronger. I don't think that's necessary. Just doing push-ups is good, but then you plateau, as you say. And if you want to get stronger, you have to do less reps, and you fail at 12, you fail at 13. But again, that's just a nuanced detail. It's not the most important thing.
No, it's actually important to
If you want to grow it and you plateau, I guess it's important.
So to grow muscle, you gotta go to maximum at around somewhere between 4 and 12, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah. So numbers I've heard 8 to 12, I guess exactly what you said. Most important thing is getting close to failure or at failure. And most people underestimate. So I was listening to this bodybuilder scientist, and most people underestimate their their failure point. So you can definitely push past and do a few more. That's your true failure. Something to keep in
You know
mind.
what's funny is that I'm trying to do some bench pressing, and I find that it you can fail really quickly. You're getting, I don't know, to between your 5 to 8, whatever weight you're doing, and all of a sudden you get stuck. You can't go anymore. At least I get that way, and I need somebody there to make sure that I get some help there. It's interesting. Anybody have that problem too? You like you're doing 6 and I can do one more? Nope. And it's need help.
Absolutely. This is
Uh,
more psychological as well, maybe, but
I don't know. I can't move
Alright.
that thing. Help.
Wonderful.
Well, listen. So what I learned today is that spending 1 minute, and actually, what I need to do better is after eating at nighttime. I keep talking about either going for a walk or doing some exercise snacks. So
Do some of
tonight,
these, Dr. Curnew. I think
yeah,
exactly. I'm a big fan of making things easier for people,
yeah,
and this is an example.
any,
And I think many people
anytime,
can do it too. There's easy
yeah,
ones, advanced ones.
absolutely. Good advice. Well, listen, I want to thank both you, Rad and Ailey, for good advice. Now it's just up to me to do it, and yourselves too as well. So worth looking at this. I'm going to try some of these more and more. Have a great night, everybody.